Good day. Welcome to our Bid More YouTube channel. Bid More is a program that equips local small businesses to win contract bids at local, state, federal, and other organizational levels. This YouTube channel is dedicated to training and coaching local and small businesses on estimating and proposal writing. We encourage you to subscribe to this Bid More channel to receive updates, tips, and guidelines so that you are empowered and have the confidence to bid more and win more contract bids. Thank you. The topic of this Bid More session is bid estimating, pricing, and budgeting by Alex Fisher. We appreciate Alex Fisher for generously sharing his knowledge, experiences, insights, and practical tips to empower local small businesses to bid more and win more. Enjoy the presentation.
I want you to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about your business, and then we'll roll right into the interview questions.
So hello, everybody. I'm Alex Fisher. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a licensed general contractor. I also perform roofing work, so I'm a licensed roofer. I've been in the construction industry pretty much my whole life. Got my college degree, the professional engineering license, which was a big step for me. I've been doing professional engineering now for almost 5 years. Pretty much here to talk about cost estimating, budgeting, and just help people win bids.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. And we are grateful to have your expertise for this interview today. So if we can roll to the next slide, we'll start with the first question. But before we start with questions, so the first question for Alex. Alex, where do you start when you estimate cost for a bid? When you have a proposal and you have to estimate costs for that proposal, where do you start?
So typically if it's an advertisement or solicitation like through the city, the main thing is to read, focus, and understand what you're bidding on. These written solicitations always have a lot of documentation. They always have a lot of requirements that you have to read through. I always like to start with that. But when it actually gets down to the nitty-gritty of cost estimating, I look for the largest, usually the most expensive or the most time-consuming item. Mm-hmm. For me, I do construction services, and to give you an idea, for building a building, most of the time the foundation or the site work is the most time-consuming. So I always like to start with the biggest item just to kind of see where cost may lie. Mm-hmm. And then kind of from there, that's when I do a quick, go or no go to see if I have enough scheduling time, if I have enough manpower, basically from there. And then I like to focus on items with the most profit margin. So a lot of times in building a foundation for like a building, that's usually where most of the project budgeting lies. So I spend the most of the time looking and reviewing that as part of the written solicitation. And then I'll structure my bid. Sometimes these bids give you line items in the structure of which they want you to bid. But if not, I'll structure my bid with line items.
What are some factors? So question 2, what are some factors to keep in mind to avoid underestimating or on the flip side, overestimating?
I mean, again, you just read, you got to focus and understand what you're bidding on. You read the solicitation, you got to understand requirements, qualifications, the insurances. I like to take my time and review my cost estimate multiple times. A lot of time I'll put a draft together. I'll walk away for it for at least a day. That's when, either if it's a residential client or something, they usually call me and start asking me, hey, where's your bid? So, yeah, I'm still working on it. Give me another day or two. I'll read it again the next day when my mind is fresh, just to make sure that I didn't overlook anything or didn't forget anything. And I always ask questions. I ask 1,000 questions because that's the best way to gain the information from the client. It's always good to know your staff size, your capabilities, your utilization of your employees, scheduling, knowing if you're going to be able to get there or not. Because sometimes, you know, if you overestimate and underdeliver, client might not be very happy with you. Another thing is, you know, your average service delivery time and cost, know about how long it takes you. You know, sometimes times of activities can vary, but it just all depends. And then always, you know, ask your employees, the staff feedback from similar projects. Get the idea from him that maybe they might think that you overworked them. So if your employees are happy, then of course they're going to work harder for you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So we try to make sure we choose significant questions, right? So what's significant about underestimating? Why is that significant?
Underestimating is you want to avoid that. I was on a job once. I always use this example because it's the best one I have that was real life. It was a roadway experience, and we were paving a road. It was a 2-lane road, Beaver Street in Jacksonville. And the contractor was working next to the railroad. Well, within his bid, it said that he had to have a special kind of railroad insurance. Well, he forgot to purchase the railroad insurance policy, and he forgot to put that cost in his bid. And it ended up costing him about an extra $50,000 to purchase that insurance policy. And that came out of his profit. And of course it was a company, and, you know, he wasn't happy. His boss wasn't happy. The owner wasn't happy, but they weren't allowed to complete the work without having the insurance required. So underestimating is never good.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad.
I want to pipe in, give you a real hurtful example of underestimating. Let me ask Terry. Terry, do you think ICAT at one point underestimated her there beaten big time? Say yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna give you an example. Ladies and gentlemen, once upon a time, there was a bid where the client said not to exceed 50,000. 50,000. So we could have submitted 49,000, 48,000, somewhere close, not too low. And guess what? One of our proposal writers erroneously, underestimated. They thought, maybe my accent, 50 and 15. So they put in for $15,000. 15. The budget is 50. We could have gone, up to 45,000 to be under the threshold. So it was submitted for 15,000, which will be a non-starter. So you could underestimate through a human error. So we started the work. We were close to spending already $15,000, and we found out. It's an error. I'm not ashamed. We learned from it. We found out the budget was 15,000. That was approved. The client was excited. We are the lowest bidder.
I bet.
And so I had to beg them to cancel the contract. I had to beg them and say, hey, listen, please cancel the contract without fault, because we made a human error. So I'm just here to tell you, it can happen unintentionally through a human error. So that's one example. I hope you beware. And underestimating, whether it is intentional or unintentional, you may not be able to afford to do the project. You have to borrow money. So fortunately, the client was willing to cancel the contract without fault. And we, however much we spent was something we had to absorb. So it can be underestimating, can be very costly. So I just want to give you that example. Terry, you think an example?
Gabe, that's why I always say that I set it down and I try to review it multiple times, because you never know what you misread one day and what you catch the next day.
Definitely. Thank you both. Those are very excellent stories that really brought that home, the importance of making sure you kind of estimate as close as you can to your realistic cost. So let's move on to question 3. For Alex, where do you get the requirements for how to do pricing or how to present your estimates?
Most of the time, the bid requirements are within the solicitation. It's a bid requirements document that contains the guidance of how pricing must be done and presented. This is usually in the solicitation or advertisement. We always encourage you to read, understand and focus. Always reread it multiple times, because most of the time the bid requirement document is within the solicitation itself. That's basically one of those that you read multiple times and highlight to make sure that you catch all the key components.
Awesome. I think that's pretty straightforward question. So let's go on to number 4. I think it's pretty straight. Question 3 was pretty straightforward, but really important, still drilling down the importance of reading the solicitation and making sure you understand it and you abide by the guidelines within the solicitation. So question 4, how do you balance the need to be a low bidder so that you kind of win the bid, but also the need for profitability?
This one's always tricky. I always like to say to make sure that your price matches the scope. If it's a small job, then make sure you have a minimum to at least cover cost, because you don't want to bid a tiny job and then still kind of be hung out to dry. You can include terms and conditions or exclusions to show your limitations. Sometimes if I'm doing a residential construction job and we're not sure of like interior finishes, I'll say, cabinets are not included, just because I don't know what the owner wants to pick out. So for our guests, let's say like janitorial services, maybe you could say something like, your cleaning is only limited to the bathroom unless you want us to go into offices, include trash pickup, trash takeout. You can always set limitations or exclusions. And then if you think your price is too high, you can always add a clause that say that you are negotiable.
Awesome. Very, very good feedback. Any questions? Any other questions about that question before we move on to our last question?
I want to ask Byron, if there are, in your janitorial service, if there are terms and conditions that are common in your industry, just educate us. So what are terms and conditions? What are your techniques in the way you want to make sure that, you remain a low cost bidder and at the same time stay, profitable?
Well, Gabe, to be honest with you right now, I don't have the answer to that question, because I done did one bid, one proposal, and we sent that one off, and then they canceled the contract. So I'm not sure right now. So I'm still working on that part to figure it out. So that's one reason why we're doing what we're doing here, is trying to learn and figure that part out.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's keep it moving, keep it on track. Last question for Alex. How can budgeting benefit me in pursuing bids, or our guests in pursuing bids?
So I always say, read, focus, and understand what you're bidding, because you have to budget your time and resources when you're writing these bids, because sometimes they can be quite lengthy. It takes time to read through it. It takes time to, once you go through a good 20, you start to kind of grasp the same clauses, the same requirements. You know where to look for certain things, but it's always important to read those important parts And then, you know, you always have to budget your time and looking for work. When I was first getting started, you know, I didn't have any work. So I had more time to look for work. And then as my workload kind of grows, you kind of realize that you spend more time working, but then you also have to spend time looking for more work.
Mhm.
I always review advertisement solicitations closely because you don't want to waste time writing a bid and then getting disqualified. As then that's kind of, you know, wasting your time, and maybe it's a good learning curve. I mean, you might get disqualified once or twice, but if you get disqualified multiple times for the same thing, then you kind of just wasting your time and effort. I always say that, you know, at first getting started, go after the work that you know you're more experienced in. Look for the low hanging fruit before you climb the tree. Because in the end, I mean, with business, you know, time is money.
So as far as like budgeting, like what benefits do you see in budgeting in relation to pursuing bids and also kind of making a profit as well?
Well, I guess the biggest thing is budgeting is having the money to be able to do what you need to do to be able to pay your employees and buy your supplies. So that's I think a big thing for us, because we are small right now. We growing, and the business is kind of like at a flat line, because we still trying to work and find contracts at the same time.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I think definitely what you just said, you have to make sure your budget is correct so that you can pay your employees so the work can get done. Also, another thing you said, you're at like a standstill. So budgeting can also be important for profitability, making sure your estimates and of your costs are pretty close to what the actual is, so you're not losing money on the job or not being profitable. So I think the implications for the importance for budgeting and estimating are huge when it comes to the success of a business. So I definitely appreciate your answer. I definitely appreciate everybody's participation. I see Gabe came off mute. So Gabe, please share what you were going to share.
So when it comes to budgeting, just want to share this experience. You know, I think I have one good example. One is, you know, when the client says not to exceed 15,000, 50,000, 30, you know, 100,000, I would say always ask for that, because the client knows what the cost of this is for the most part. Find out their budget. I think that's kind of like something to make a habit. You know, make the habit of asking not to exceed. Okay, that's different from asking the bidding amount. Let's say if the client's total budget is 100,000, there is still room for bidding. Someone may bid 99,000. Someone else may bid for 80,000. Another person may still bid for 60,000. So there is still room to bid when you know the client's budget. So ask the client. Sometimes the client may not tell you. It's okay, just ask. So that's one thing we've done where it's kind of helps you to kind of gauge what's available. I want to tell you one example. There was a time when one client asked us, to submit our bid or to submit our estimate for a service. Okay, I'm going to tell you a true story. So, I think they wanted 1 day of training. We could have done it for $2,500 or $1,500 a day at the time. I happened to ask, what is the amount of money you want to spend? I just asked that question. And they said, here is what they said. It's kind of something you'll be surprising. They said, we have a grant from, state government. And we have $11,000, $11,500 we need to spend, or we're going to lose it. Is that valuable information or what? Byron, is that good information?
Yes, that is.
That is, a grant money available, and they want to spend that money or lose it. If I submit a bid for $2,500, I'm not helping them. I'm helping them when I can help them spend, $11,500. Now, let me tell you. So, I'm not a dishonest person. Am I a dishonest person, Alex?
No, not at all, Gabe.
No, not at all. I'm not a dishonest person. I'm not going to tell them, it takes me $11,500 for a job I can do for $2,500. And guess what I did? And I want Byron to tell me if my answer is honest. I said, hey, listen, I'm going to help you spend $11,500. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the training you want. Also, I'm going to make my trainers to be available to coach every one of your people for 90 days. And the client said, oh my goodness, you are a genius. You helped me spend my $11,500. So if I just do the training, I think I could have done it for $2,500. However, by making my trainers and coaches available for 90 days, you think that's an honest response, Byron?
Yes, that's a very honest response and a win-win for you and a win-win for the client.
Correct. So that's my example. So I think, just asking questions. And I want to just close by saying, when a client posts a bid, there may be an addendum that includes question and answer from the vendors. Read that. There may be a clue for how you are going to bid. There may be a clue for the, kind of the budgeting parameters. So anything and everything the client publishes, whether it is an answers to questions, read it and look for any budgeting or estimating or pricing clue to help you price it right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gabe.
Thank you for making the time to watch this Bid More presentation. We know you will use this knowledge, insights, and tips in your future bidding activities. Remember, Bid More is a program that equips local small businesses to win contract bids at local, state, federal, and other organizational levels. This YouTube channel is dedicated to training and coaching local and small businesses on estimating and proposal writing. We encourage you to subscribe to this Bid More channel to receive updates, tips, and guidelines so that you are empowered and have the confidence to bid more and win more contract bids. Please kindly leave us your comments, questions, and suggestions to improve future programming for the benefit of many. Make it a fantastic day.